Hi, good evening everybody. So my topic for today is how being an entrepreneur helps your PM career. So before we start, I'll just talk about myself. I head up communications product line at Oracle. So basically we enable customer experience through digital communications. Basically that is video, audio, chat, messaging. So all these digital communication channels we use for providing a better customer experience, right? So let's say you're shopping within Amazon or any other retail store, right? And you are stuck somewhere. So today you have to go pick up a phone and call the customer service, right? So how about having some communication within the site itself? And it's so personalized that if you're buying a specific product, it knows the context and it gives you the communication channel so that you can talk to your customers too. So that is what we do. And I've been product manager for about 10 plus years. So I've started my career in communications. So now they used to call it as telecommunications. They don't call it anymore because communications was really a big vertical, right? You needed a service provider, you have to pay the service provider, you still do, but now the communication is essentially, it has become an essential feature in your app, like WhatsApp, Facebook, and many other apps. They inherently have these messenger kind of things so that you can communicate with those apps directly, right? So apps communicate with each other, devices communicate with each other, machines communicate with each other. So it was a very interesting journey for me. And as I rode through that telecommunications and communications change, I was fortunate enough to sort of launch several new products during that journey, right? Because every time there is a new wave coming in, we had to look around the corner and launch a new product, right? So that's how I started being an entrepreneur. I was and am an engineer by training, and if you are an engineer, you are always taught to how to solve the problems, right? But what is the problem that is really that deserves to be solved? That you don't know. It's always hard for engineers to get that idea on what is the problem that really solves the customer issues or the customer need. So that is what I am very excited about. So it's the confluence of both problem finding and problem solving that makes you an entrepreneur. So, and I do a lot of mentoring as well. I part of the Oracle mentoring board, and I'm part of the Stanford mentoring board as well. So if you are looking for something, just talk to me and I'll be happy to help. And I usually learn a lot from my mentoring sessions as well. So I know it's Thursday, I know you've come so far, so let's start with something interesting, right? So I'll request you basically to read this sentence, and I'll give you 20 seconds. So please find all the F's. It doesn't matter if it's uppercase or lowercase. Find the F's in this sentence.
F as in Frank?
Yeah, F as in Frank, yes. I'll give you a couple of seconds. All right. So how many F's? So how many of you found 3 F's? Exactly 3 F's. 4?
And 6.
6.
6?
4, but I think there are probably 6 then.
You guys are really smart. Actually, the first time I read this sentence, I could only find 4. But yeah, there are 6 F's here, right? And this is very interesting because most people, they usually skip the F's here, right, in offs, because they look at the bigger picture and they sort of miss these smaller details, right? And that's what we usually do, right? So there is always something small that has a big impact on how you design things and so on. So I know most people might have used Facebook, right? And there is a like button. And you might have used the like button. It's a small, very, very small concept of liking a post. But what does it do? It really solves the very deeper unmet need of the people who find it very hard to communicate. Like some people, and myself included, right, introverts, right? So if we are not really as used to expressing ourselves. So this like button is like a godsend for us, right? So you're in the social circle and you want to comment on something and you just like it and you're done, right? So that is a very small feature which has a really, really high impact on customers. So many of us have ideas, right? The ideas could be big or it could be small, but it is the real impact that it has on the consumers that matters. So that is where I think we talk about intrapreneurship, right? And this is a famous quote from Nolan Bushnell, where he says, everybody who has taken a shower has an idea, but one who really does something about it makes a difference. And that is what entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs are about, right? So the idea can come from anywhere else, right? Like there are hackathons, there are engineers, there are HR people, so everybody can come up with an idea. And I'm sure you might have friends who had said at some point of your interaction, hey, that's a good idea, maybe we have to start a company, right? But how many of us really have started that company? Actually, the other day, my daughter, my 8-year-old daughter, she was saying, hey, you know what, Mom, we should create a moving road. So she found out that every time she goes to school, there's 1 mile strip that is totally crowded, right? And she said, we have to create a moving road so that we don't have to wait in the traffic. So I thought, yeah, that's a good idea. I mean, you've seen that in airports used in a different way. But yeah, what do you do about it? That's what matters, right? So what are we talking about? So I'm talking about entrepreneurship. And why am I talking to product managers and aspiring product managers about entrepreneurship? Because as a product manager, you have several personas, right? So you are the product advocate. So you are talking to your customers, you are talking to your internal teams about your product, and you are really very passionate about your product as a product manager. And you are troubleshooting, right? So whenever there's a problem, customer says this doesn't work and this feature is cracked, you are sort of troubleshooting that as a product manager. And you're a negotiator, and this is a key skill, right? Because you have to negotiate between priorities, you have to negotiate with engineers for their time, and so on. And you're a subject matter expert. Nobody is considered more subject matter expert than you are, even if you are not. People think you are the subject matter expert if you're a product manager, right? And you are a creator. Even though you're working with designers, you are guiding them on what would be the best design for that product, right? And you are the owner of numbers. Ultimately, it's the number game, right? And you are a storyteller. You have to tell a good story about what your product is about and so on. And you have to know what the market is. And sometimes you have to create a new market for your product, right? So that is essentially all the skills that you need to be an entrepreneur. That doesn't mean that anybody else in the company can't be an entrepreneur, but as a product manager, you have all these key skills. And I think the most important skill, in my experience as a product manager, is separating out the signal from the noise. Because you get so much data, so much information from the market, from your customers, from your team, from your boss, from the marketing people that you have in the company. So there's so much data, and that's where you have to really separate out the signal from the noise and get out what is important for you and important for the company. So product managers are well set out to be entrepreneurs. But people would say, if I have a great idea, why don't I start my own company, right? Why would I work for a company like that? So entrepreneurship is more relevant in large organizations, usually. And I sort of compare what is entrepreneur versus entrepreneur, right? So as an entrepreneur, you have a credibility upside. So let's say that Google is making shoes, for example, right? You would buy it, right? I mean, Google shoes, you know, Google has email, Google has everything really great, and you would buy. But if it is ABC shoes, you're starting from a blank slate, right? And a customer ecosystem. So, yeah, Google shoes, I have a lot of companies that are partners for Google in some shape or form. right? Probably Nike is, Adidas is, they're using some shape or form the customer ecosystem. So I have the customer ecosystem, and this is very important because as product managers, you have to do a lot of iteration on whether your product works or not. For that, you need customers. As an ABC company, if I go and ask somebody whether you want to try my shoes and give the feedback, they'll say no, because it takes time for them. It takes time investment and a lot of that. So that's a huge plus. And risk is moderate, right? Let's say that your product fails really badly. What have you got to lose, right? You probably lose time as a product manager, and maybe career. If you have done really, really bad, you get fired. But most companies are really tolerant to failure to a large extent, because nowadays, with the culture that we have here, failure is celebrated, right? So you learn a lot. But maybe if you've done really bad job, yeah, maybe. But here, as an entrepreneur, it's a huge risk. You not only lose your time, career, but you also lose a lot of money. Career maybe, because again, the culture that we have, even entrepreneurs who fail have learned a lot, so they are respected. But you lose money, right? You have some initial investment, you lose money. There's a downside as well, right? So bureaucracy and legacy processes, right? So you are starting a new product, a new project in your large company. You still have that bureaucracy and processes that you have to go through, unless it's something really a separate organization, like Apple when they were doing Mac. I heard a story that Steve Jobs really took all the people there and he created a new business unit or something like that, where they could do anything that they want, right? They are sort of separated from the regular processes and so on. But in most companies, that's not the reality, right? Even though they give you a lot of freedom in using all this, there are certainly the bureaucracy and processes and so on. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you're the boss, you can do whatever you want, right? And funding upside, right? Yeah, funding is always a problem. Money is always a problem, whether you are in the big company or small company, resources you have to beg for and so on. But that is not the one that keeps you up at night, right? It's for the entrepreneur, it does, right? So money, if there's no money, then you are at risk. And reward, and risk and reward go together. If you have moderate risk, you have moderate reward. What do you get? You get a promotion and maybe a salary hike. But here, the reward is huge, right? Your startup makes it big, then you get a lot of money there, right? So, entrepreneur need not be coming up with it's not really about bringing up a huge idea, right? But it can be a small idea that you want to productize and sell to your customers. Most companies are today in Bay Area and across the world as well, they are encouraging entrepreneurship, especially the large companies, right? They have hackathons. You see hackathons everywhere, and like brilliant ideas come out of hackathons. So maybe I think I have to mention that we had a hackathon once, and it was just really about, as I said, I work in digital communications, so voice, video. So it has, as I said, transformed from being a big box somewhere to something that you can put in your apps and phones and so on. So we had a hackathon once, and they came up with this brilliant idea, and it's a non-profit now. It's called Be My Eyes. And it's for visually challenged people. So not totally blind, but older people who are a little bit visually challenged. So if they are in a supermarket and they are not able to look at the price or ingredients, or if they are somewhere in the street and they are lost and they are not able to figure out where they are, so they can go to this app and they can call someone, and there are volunteers who, with a video call, help them out. So they read the ingredients and help them out. So brilliant idea. I thought it's a fantastic idea, right? And innovation time. We all know Google gives 20% innovation time and so on. And curated entrepreneurship programs. And this is what we have at Oracle. So Oracle, they partnered with a company called 1 Million by 1 Million. There's a very famous entrepreneur called Smarana Rao. So she has that entrepreneurship. So they teach, it's like a year-long program, you have to apply for it. So they teach you how to do problem finding, how to do problem solving, and then you come up with an idea, or you or a bunch of friends can come up with an idea, and they provide you a platform where you can present that idea to all the business groups within the company, and any business group that sees that as a fit, they can make it into a product. So it's a huge opportunity, and all these are opportunities to progress your careers, right? And there are a lot of famous examples as well that came out of entrepreneurship, right? Google Mail, and it was an idea of an engineer working on something in Google, and they came up with Google Mail, which Gmail, which is what we own, most of us use, right? And 3M Post-it. There was one guy who just got friendly glue. It's not like tight industrial glue, friendly glue that consumers can use. So he created it, and he didn't know what to do with it. So that idea stayed with 3M for a long time. And then one day, one other engineer was very frustrated with the bookmarks that he had, right? So he used to have bookmarks, and it used to fall down all the time. And then he used this idea to create Post-it, which we all use all the time. So there are many, many examples of small ideas that had big impact, right? And that is what we want to discuss today. So there are three key steps of what an entrepreneur or entrepreneur does. And each of this is huge, but I'll just give you a broad stroke. Just from my experience in a large company, how you create new products, right? And first, let's go to idea, right? And this is a quote from Steve Jobs, which says, make a dent, idea should make a dent in the universe, right? So whenever you're coming up with an idea, you have to think about what kind of impact it has on your customers, whether it's consumers, end consumers, or your enterprises. And typically, even for B2B, it's B2B to C, right? So you are developing for the consumers. So what moves the needle? I think that is very deep. So you have to really figure out what is that deeper unmet need, right? So I think in most companies, probably that's one of the interview questions they ask, right? So how do you improve this product? So it's not about making a bigger button, or it's about what is that unmet need that the customer has that I need to solve. So to me, this sweet spot of innovation is really where you are creating for the customer. The customer is willing to use your product. The customer is willing to pay for your product. There's a business viability, and the product is built well, right? So it's a intersection of human values, business viability, and technological feasibility. So let me take you through some of the interesting examples, right? So I don't know if I can play this with the internet here. Yeah, right. So let me play this.
You can explore space without a rocket. A father and son from New York did using.
What is that?
Maybe I have a window.
Okay, I have to end this. Okay. Okay, yeah.
Did you know you can explore space without a rocket? A father and son from New York did using a weather balloon. Back in August, Luke and Max Geisbuehler put together a homemade capsule containing a video camera and an iPhone and attached it to the balloon. Up it went above the clouds with the camera recording some breathtaking views. Once in space, 19 miles above the Earth, the balloon popped and the capsule plummeted before a parachute slowed it down. A GPS tracking device on the iPhone helped them find it about 30 miles from their launch site. So why did they do it? Because they could.
So this was a few years ago, but you get the idea, right? So there were two guys on a Sunday afternoon, and they were
Present.
and they were thinking what to do. Yeah, they were thinking what to do, right? Sunday afternoon, what to do? Let's launch an iPhone into stratosphere, right? So that's what they did. And why did they do it? Because they could. That's what she said. So what does it tell us, right? So if you, so there's a lot of noise, but if you separate the signal from the noise, what does it tell us? It tells us about the change in mind shift of the individuals, right? How accessible the technology is, right? So you find a problem, you solve it using the technology, right? So thinking back to the video, right? So on Sunday, they launched an iPhone into stratosphere. What would they do on Monday, Tuesday? They would go to bank, they would go to hospitals, they would go to universities, whatever the regular thing that they would do. But what would be their expectation? Their expectation would be very different. I launched iPhone into stratosphere, and this is the best mobile banking experience you would give me. Seriously, right? I mean, what do they expect from the business? Yesterday, their expectation was different. Yesterday, your crappy banking experience would be still okay, right? But today, the expectation is very different, right? So take this to your products, take this to your roadmap, and see how you can make a difference, right? Think about what are the different trends that the customers are having, right? Don't think about the current customers. The current customers is your next trend in a roadmap, right? In your next 80-20 rule, right? Most of them use 80-20 rule. What the 80% of my customer use, and I put that in my roadmap. That is for today, but where is the technology trending? And these are the extreme customers that you have to look for to really put into your roadmap. And just they can't really spell out what they want. Just look at the trend, right? And that is your roadmap. That is where the product ideas come from, right? And there's another interesting clip, I think, that I want to show, right? So in 2015, in the World Economic Forum, Eric Schmidt, right, who is the chairman of Google, so he said the internet would disappear. And that was really a controversial statement. Actually, I thought I would show, but I wasn't sure how you would react. But let me, I think, show that to you, right?
Eric Schmidt, Google's executive chairman, made an interesting statement that is raising a few eyebrows. Take a listen.
I would answer very simply that the internet will disappear. The internet there'll be so many IP addresses because of IPv6, so many devices, sensors, things that you're wearing, things that you're interacting with, that you won't even sense it. It'll be part of your presence all the time.
So, what does he mean, right? When he said the internet would disappear, what does it really mean? So it really means that, so he says that there's so many devices around you, and so what we think about internet, we think about internet as something that is in your computer, right? Or maybe if you're wearing a device, it's with you. But he's saying that everything is connected now. And this was in 2005, but 2015, right? And now it is actually a reality because everything around us is connected and there is no difference between the physical space and the virtual space, right? So he used an example of a virtual room where everything is connected. Once everything is connected, it's part of you. So internet there's no difference between a physical world and a virtual world, right? So think about what kind of experiences, what kind of banking experiences you would give to your customers if your bank is in that room. What kind of hospital experience would you give if your hospital is in that room? So that is the vision, that is the idea. And again, it need not be a big idea, it could be a small thing. So think about what does your product do or not do if your product is in that room. So that, what is the deepest need of your customer that you can satisfy if your product is in that room? And there's a very interesting, and I don't think I can resist showing you this, right? So there is a tilt brush, and it sort of, Google bought this company, and it sort of resonates with Eric Schmidt's, again, I think I have to minimize it. It sort of resonates with what Eric Schmidt has said. So let me show you that. And I promise that's the last video of today. So no more TV. So this is a tilt brush. It allows you to walk into your own painting, right? So you're doing a painting and you can walk into your painting. You're designing clothes, you can walk into your clothes. So what does it do? What kind of new products it can bring? So your doctors can go into actual body and they can create surgeries which they haven't been able to do before. You can debug a lot of systems like oil and gas and so on in places which are very far away, which are supposed to be dangerous. With this technology, you can do that, right? And probably you might be thinking, oh, virtual technology, how would we, right? I mean, not everybody is using it, but Amazon and Wayfair had done it before, but Amazon is doing it now, right? So you can, with your iPhone, choose an Amazon product and see how it will look like in your living room, in your bedroom. You can, it's the mixed reality, right? You can superimpose the virtual object in your physical, and it's there. Like if you have a new iPhone 6 Plus and you go to the Amazon app, you can sort of superimpose that mixed reality onto that. So again, I think I want to emphasize this point, right? What's moving the needle? I think that's what you have to think about when you're thinking about the idea. So there are a few things, right? So you have to first think about problem framing, right? So there are all these great technologies that you would have, but what is the problem that you're trying to solve? And you have to understand the customer and the customer needs, right? How do you understand the customer and customer needs? As I said, there are so many things, right? You interview your customer, and if you interview your customer, so you say, hey, do you like Kellogg's with strawberry or Kellogg's with almonds? They would choose one of those both. So your questions should be open, right? What do you have for breakfast, right? And if you ask right questions to your customer will pour his heart out. Right? So that's amazing, and maybe that could be a topic for another session on what kind of interview questions you should ask when you're talking to your customers. But again, understanding your customer, ask your customer, and figure out what is the unmet need. As I said, Facebook like button, right? For people who are, for many people, not just introverts, right? Who are sort of having difficulty expressing themselves, like button is godsend. So what are these unmet needs? And you have data from your marketing, you have data from your customers, you have data from your support team where customers call and they have, whenever they have problems, and then synthesize. So this is where you separate the signal from the noise and you synthesize it. And then you come to the problem solving, right? Problem solving is where you do the brainstorming. So now that you have some problem statement, how might I improve the travel experience for my customers, for example, right? So then you start with brainstorming. And brainstorming, there are many techniques, right? So you start off with really crazy ideas, go divergent. That's called divergent thinking, right? Really crazy ideas. think about how do I send rocket to space using, I don't know, my iPhone. Right? And then think about convergent ideas. So once you have all these larger ideas, converge them together and get to a point where you find a solution. And then you start prototyping and then you start iterating and so on. But I think common to all these are three main things, which is empathy, customer empathy, collaboration, because you need to have diverse teams. So everybody, if they collaborate, they come up with a better idea rather than you sitting in the shower and thinking about what you would do. Oh, it's a great idea, we should start a company. I have many of my friends say that, right? And then iteration, right? Always open to the feedback. And I wanted to share just my starting points when I start a new product, right? So typically, there are many ways you can start a new product. It could be like a breakthrough idea and a new business for the company, or it could be an iterative innovation. So I already have a product line where I have certain number of products, and then I talk to the customers. And then when I talk to the customers, I talk to extreme customers, right? So so usually there are customers that we sell to, like contact centers, where they use our software or service. And we have this on digital audio, video, and so on. And then we talk to the customers. Hey, do you use the video? They bought the software for video. Do you use video? They say, no. Why? So again, 5 ways. Why not, right? Why don't you use the video? Because our contact center has so many people and it's not set up for video. So why are you not investing in setting up for video? It's expensive. Why can't you invest that? When you want to serve your customer, you better invest that. Then they say, no, our customers are really using different channels. They are not actually calling up contact centers. So that gives you some idea on where the world is going, right? So people are not really calling up contact centers to tell their problem. They are using their own apps to chat with the customer service representative and all that. And as I said, your 5 whys will reveal a lot of information about the deep unmet needs of your customer, and then you have to separate noise in the signal, right? So there's a lot of feedback that you get from the customer. So you might be asking what you eat for breakfast, your customer might be telling you about what they had for dinner, right? Which is good, maybe that will get you some insights, but then there's something called bricolage, right? So this is where you compare what has been done somewhere else and it has been successful. Like as I said, in the airport, there is already this moving road, right? And how do you bring it to your own product? And we did a lot of that with our enterprise product. So we sell B2B, we sell to customers, right? So we just observed our customers, right? So the end users. End users today, they talk to their friends using Google Hangouts, using Facebook Messenger. They talk to their friends using FaceTime. And then when it really comes to talking to a business, you have to pick up your phone, call 1-800 number. It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Your customers are going somewhere and your enterprises, your businesses are really not moving at that pace. So what works there should also work at enterprise, for enterprise. I think Facebook has also gone to that Facebook enterprise, right? They call it workspace or something, right? Many enterprises now use that because now you are so social, right? You talk to your customers, you put your pictures, you put your statuses on Facebook. Why not for enterprise, right? Why not share that ideas? Why not be open, right? So that's one sort of bricolage, and it could be something else, right? Something that has worked in oil and gas industry might just work for you in the software industry. And then conversion to the organizational mission. So this is very important if you want to be an entrepreneur, right? You might get crazy ideas, but essentially you have to still converge it to your organizational mission. So if Google is making shoes, it has to somehow relate to sharing information because Google's mission is about sharing information. Unless those shoes track where you're going and send that information back, or they send you to an advertising store somewhere where paid for advertising, right? Okay. Oh, why am I at Panda Express? Because Panda Express paid for advertising or something like that. I mean, nothing think funny about that, but again, it has to sort of get into. For us, it was frictionless communications, right? For our because I'm in communications, it was frictionless communication. How can I make the communication that? How can I enable the enterprises that I work with provide a frictionless communication to their end users or end customers? So that was my starting point for idea. And then I think the second, so once, let's say that you have an idea, right? So where do you go? You have this brilliant idea. Maybe it's yours or maybe it's somewhere in your team. The idea is just the first step. The next two steps are harder, actually. Second one is pitch. What is your story, right? So you have to be able to articulate your story. Once you have an idea, it's not enough. You have to talk about your story. And people think that once you have a brilliant idea, that's where you're done, right? I mean, people will come to you, they'll say, oh, wow, let's do it. I'll give you $1 million, let's start, I'll make you a VP. No, it's the pitch, right? Nobody cares about your idea. So I think this is the reality. HIPPO, right? Highest paid person's opinion. So you take your idea, once you have your idea, you probably do some research, you get some data, you say, hey, you know what, people are using iPhones for everything, the apps are really going up, we have to develop an app and everything. And so you have all this data, right? You go to your stakeholder and you give all that option and your stakeholder says option B, right? So that's where it's the end of the story. So you have to go back and your desk and do your job, right? So that's where stories are important, right? Because stories, you have to take your stories, you have to take your data and create a story out of it. So they have to be memorable, they have to be impactful, and they have to be personal for you to really make an impact. And so once you have a story, it's not that you can tell that story to everybody, right? So everybody has different expectations. So let's say it's your stakeholder, your boss, or your boss's boss, or your general manager, right? So what does she have as a priority, right? So you can't go to that boss's boss and you say, this will change the world. I mean, maybe that's a priority, but for her, it's a bottom line. So when you say, you know what, we'll make 10 million in next year, that will sort of trigger a few neurons, right? And it also depends, right? So they are stakeholders, right? So when they are stakeholders, you have to see what is important for them. Sometimes validation, comfort, right? So you can say, you know what, there is this startup that has already done it because you're in a large company. So you have that scale and resource that startups don't have. So you can say that, you know, this has been implemented elsewhere. So that's validation. And you can give them comfort that there is this risk, but there's also this high reward, right? So that is the story you want to tell the stakeholders. And how do you get the team to work for you? Because once you have an idea, the first couple of months, nobody is giving you resources, right? You have to at least make a little small prototype so that you can go show it to somebody and ask them for money and resources. So head of resourcing or your team, how do you influence your team? Because your team, they are already paid for the job they do. Why would they want to come and work for you? So they say that you have to develop this circle story, right? You have to talk about the story of how your company impacts the world. That is the bigger circle. And you have to talk about how your team impacts the company. And you have to talk about how your role impacts the team. So if your team member can articulate those three stories, they'll find the purpose, their purpose in what you're trying to do. And every team member, they are looking for a purpose, right? So if you're saying that, hey, you know what? You can, with this, you can make a lot of impact on millions of users, right? Millions of users will be using this product. That's a big motivation for somebody, right? So you will be using excellent latest technologies. For an engineer, that's like a piece of cake, right? So the story for your team is very different from the story. So if you would be telling that the company can make $10 million, I don't care. I want to go home and watch my soccer game, right? So that's what your engineers will do. And this is the third important thing is you should build your social capital. So if you are in a company and you want to do something really impactful, do something to others that others will do to you, right? So you have to help others and the others will help you. And this is very important because these are your channels and these are your influencers. So these important people, if you help them, they will influence your stakeholders as well. So let's say your general manager really respects the VP of marketing, right? So you have to be friends with VP of marketing first. And you have to do something to VP of marketing so that VP of marketing will help you, right? So you have to tell a story to the influencers. You have to tell how this whole thing will benefit their career, right? So these guys could be analysts who will be writing about your product, or bloggers who will be writing about your product, your company. And if they write properly, you'll all automatically get these two into the picture, right? So I think stories are really what sticks. And for a lot of cultures, we are brought up with all the values using stories, right? Even if you look at Bible, there are stories. It just teaches the values using stories. If you look at a lot of Indian history, it all teaches value about stories because stories stick. Nothing else sticks. And you have to be able to get all the data. Data is very important, but you have to really make the data into a story to influence these people. And this is one I love. Has anybody shopped at IKEA? So there is this thing called IKEA effect, right? So if you build something on your own, even if it is not perfect, crooked, you love it. There is a research that they did, and it turned out that people don't like to sell the IKEA furniture that they made by themselves, right? So if you make it, you own it and you love it. So that is one way to influence your stakeholders. You take a very rough prototype and show it to them, and don't ask them for feedback. If it is a rough prototype, they see the potential. If it is a complete prototype, they see the fault, right? So, and if there is no prototype, they see nothing, right? So you have to take a prototype and go to your stakeholder and ask them for feedback. Once they give you a feedback, they think it's theirs, and they'll support you. They'll support you all through, right? So that is the IKEA effect. So that is how you sort of go into pitching and getting the support. And the third stage is execution. And I think most, probably you might have heard a lot of things about execution. It's about really getting to the product, right? Seeing is believing, right? And what do we do? So there is, in the prototype execution phase, you go into the problem solution phase. So now you have a problem, you have an idea, you've got a problem, and you've told your story. And you know, when you tell your story, actually it's very hard telling the story. Putting together a story sort of clears up a lot of this idea things in your mind. Jeff Bezos, he says that people should write out their story. And it's very hard even writing. Putting together a slide is easy, but writing a story, it's very hard. Because he says people who write think a lot and they're open to the ideas. So then you start looking into problem solution fit, right? So you have a solution, you brainstorm, you have a lot of solution, you have a story, you have a problem. Does your solution solve your problem, right? So this is where you have validated learning. You do a lot of iterations, you go to your beta customers, you recruit your beta customers, and when you're recruiting your beta customers, you need to have specific metrics. That's very important here, because you have to measure for everything that you're doing. You need to have a yardstick to measure what you're doing. And then the experiments that you do here will lead you to pivots, right? So maybe this is not what you want to do, right? You pivot it to something else, right? And then you also do the problem market fit. So maybe the market that you were going to was the wrong market, right? Maybe because I'll tell you my experience, right? So we started going to the contact center selling this digital video software, and they were not using it. And when we talked about it, they said that usually people go to apps, and from apps they can talk to the customers. So we pivoted our customer segment from contact centers to really app business owners, right? So this is where you do a lot of pivoting and iteration, learning, experiments. So this can go on and on and on. And then once you have found your opportunity, then that's where you start to scale, right? That's where you still do experiments. You will not stop experiments, but your experiments are really optimizations for that solution and for that market. So you'll be optimizing for that. So as I said, right, innovation need not be breakthrough, right? It can be a small idea with a large impact, right? So it could be incremental innovation. So where you have an existing product or an existing solution, and you are just building on it, extending on it, right? And that leverages your paths to market. So if you're marketing it to a certain group of people or certain enterprises, you can still use that paths to the market. Very, I think, risk averse. Or it can be an enabling innovation. So something that you start with, but you figure out that it could have a bigger impact, right? It's not an extension to the product. I should create a new product for this, right? So this enables new value and new paths to market, right? And then breakthrough innovation. So this is significant, right? So it enables new value, new paths to the market, and it's breakthrough. It creates a new business unit for your company, and it's very significant. So sometimes you go with incremental, and then you jump to enabling new innovation. So actually, this was like a few years ago. We were building software, again, voice and video software that we were built, and this was mainly, we were using SIP technology at that time, to VoIP kind of technology. Then there was a new technology that Google came up with, which was called WebRTC, which really enabled communication within the browser, right? And then we thought, yeah, now it enables new markets, because now people can use the technology in apps without downloading software and all that. And now WhatsApp uses the same technology, Facebook uses the same technology for enabling their calls and video calls and audio calls and so on. So it could start here, you can come here, or it could start here, you can go there. So it sort of shifts based on what you're trying to do. So again, just wanted to give my experience here, right? So we started out with an idea, and then we did multiple pivots, right? So we started out with a narrow approach on what we should do. We thought, okay, we'll do just this video for a particular segment of market. Then we zoomed out, right? So we said, oh, just not video. They need other capabilities and other channels as well. So we should not be a digital video product, we should be a digital communications product. And then customer segment pivot. As I said, we were just selling to contact centers, right? The IT departments in the contact centers. Like in your enterprises, you might be having IT departments which give you access to phones and all. But that's not the segment that really was interested in it. It was like businesses like Gap, who wanted to give their customers a better customer experience if they come to the Gap website, right? And channel pivot, right? The channels that we use to sell a particular segment didn't really apply for a different segment. So different sales channels and so on. So we did multiple pivots, and it took some time to do these experiments and sort of have them. Multiple beta programs. It's a great launchpad if you're in a big company, because you have customers, and you can use your existing customers to experiment and test your products, right? And various go-to-market programs. So basically, at a large company, if you're creating a new product, it's not just that you have access to different customers, but you also have access to different other products. You can take the technology, plug it in. You don't have to buy or use open source, right? So you can take the technology, plug it in, or you can even co-sell with that. So if you're Google and if you are selling ads, then you can co-sell something with that. And in my company, we sell a lot of customer relationship management software, enterprise related software, so we co-sell that. And definitely we made a lot of revenue and we have a lot of customers. And I think that was the advantage because of creating a new product in a larger company. You would struggle if you were a small company for sure. Not necessarily, but in most cases. So I think the key takeaways I would sort of here ask you is to take away is that it's about your users' deepest needs. Think always about what are these unmet needs and try to separate signal from noise. Then there's a lot of noise you get. Try to separate it. Listen to your customer. Listen to all the data. Listen to the trends that are really happening. And practice storytelling. And it comes with practice. It doesn't come without practice. You really have to. They have this concept of 6-word stories. So whatever you do, try telling a story in 6 words. It's really hard. It seems very simple, but it's really hard. Build your social capital. Whatever you want to do, you have to build your social capital in a large company. Without that, it's very hard to navigate through the resources. And don't be afraid to poke into other parts of the business, right? So in large company, usually there are different parts of the business. Just talk to people, poke into what they are trying to do, and that will give you a lot of ideas as well. And be comfortable with failure. Failure is always there, and there's nothing wrong with failure. I think we have become so resilient that I think we celebrate failure, not just in careers, in life. It's just the resilience that helps. So be comfortable with that. So I think with that, I'll sort of open up for any questions. Thank you.